Good morning, everyone. You're kindly invited to come in, join us, have a seat. So, thank you, everyone, for waking up early this morning and joining us for this session that will be addressing crop diversity for climate change, adaptation, and mitigation, contributing to resilient and nature positive future for farmers globally. We know you're all excited about this session. We are too. And that's why our speakers have prepared a set of slides to share with you with some ideas, but we will also have some interaction. So be ready for interaction. Get your phones ready. We'll be asking some questions from you along the session. And to get started this morning, I'd like to invite Dr. Stephen Smith, that has been the executive director of the Global Crop Trust Crop Diversity Trust since January 2020. He previously worked as Deputy Director General and Commissioner for the One World No Hunger Initiative, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. So, Dr. Schmidt, we kindly invite you to share with us some thoughts on the power of crop genetic diversity as a cost effective strategy for enhancing climate resilient food and production. So let us welcome him with a hand of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much, William. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Great to have you here early this morning at COP. Yes, I mean it's good. Has food and agriculture now has a real place at climate COPs. I think that's a great achievement. It's not in the sidelines. It's becoming center stage part of the debates, and for very good reasons. I mean, there is food, agriculture, millions of smallholder farmers are directly affected by climate change. Agriculture, as such, is in many places of the world working already now at its limits. And at the same time, well, agriculture needs to play a role when it comes to mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, and now I mean that's fact. Now we are here. That brings us together. And now let's perhaps dream for a minute. Yeah, having close your eyes, dream of crops that are more resilient to higher temperatures, crops that can withstand drops that could produce higher yields with less input, so decreasing carbon footprint, crops that are more healthy, more nutritious, crops that could help us in landscape restoration and all. Right. Now come back to reality. We all have it. We have those crops. We have it. We need to use them. Sometimes we have to rescue the genetic resources when there are crises. For what we help, for example, with the Ukraine gene bank, there are emergencies, smaller ones, but likewise important in Sudan, in Cuba, in Yemen. Rescue is important. Sometimes it's important to provide sustainable funding for gene banks, for seed banks. Sometimes we just need to, use the genetic resources, the crop diversity that is available for breeding purposes, for research. And sometimes it's simply easy, bring diversity back to farmers. Bring it back. The diversity is there in field still, in seed banks, in situ, ex situ. We have it. We just now need to make it happen. There are hundreds of neglected and underutilized. There is a variety within those well-known crops: potatoes, wheat, rice, maize, and so. Let's use it. Let's make it happen. Yeah. And let's start conversation how to use it. Yeah. Where it is used, let's start to, talk about best practice, how to bring it, how to better research and whatever. All about. And would like to see a great discussion here this morning and from here continue on. Yeah, the how to use it, how make the best out of it. We need it. It's a necessity to do so, but at the same time, it's a great opportunities for smallholder farmers, for agriculture as a whole. Great opportunities. So let's have this brought as a starting point, and now let's make it very concrete. Thanks very much for your attention. Thank you for coming here. Looking forward to a great conversation. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Really amazing management of time. I'm glad we're keeping to time. Unfortunately, we had an issue with the cell phones, so we'll have to immediately change and believe how it used to work when we didn't have cell phones. So before cell phones, it would be verbal, right? And not to take too much time, I'm just going to ask people to stand up and say one or two words at the maximum, one or two words on your feedback on what you think, what you've heard, or what you think are the most important aspects of plant diversity. The most important aspects of plant diversity. Anybody? Thank thank you.
Discover aversion and resilience.
Thank you. Sorry, I was going to say resilience. Resilience. Feedback. Feedback. Beautiful. One more.
Patent free.
Patent free. Lovely.
Tasty bananas. Tasty bananas. Food security for all. Nutrition.
Long-term solution. Okay, anybody else? Right. So it works without a phone also, right? Without the Menti. I'm sorry for the team online, but okay. So now we've moved a little bit from the team here, what we perceive are issues for crop diversity, and now we're going to invite Irish Baguliat. She's the an Asian from the Asian Farmer Association for Sustainable Rural Development, and she's going to come in and share with us also her feedback on what she thinks and the Farmer Association perceives are the most important aspects of crop diversity. Let's welcome her.
Yes, thank you so much. And also thank you for the very good introduction or opening presentation. So, thank you to the organizers for inviting the Asian Farmers Association for Sustainable Rural Development, or AFA. We are a regional network of national farmers federation and agricultural cooperatives present in 16 countries in all subregions in Asia, with a total of 20 national farmers organization and cooperatives as member. So, and with that, I'm here representing all our membership, which is composed of small scale women, men, young farmers who are producing crops, livestock, and some of them are also pastoralists and herders. And also, I have here some of my colleagues, from the network. So, physical discomfort because of the heat, dry spells, heat waves, unusual pest occurrences. Some weeds are becoming more difficult to manage and control. Intense rain or changes in rainfall pattern, extreme typhoons, and strong winds are among the reported occurrences and changes being experienced by our constituencies. So, even before we came to COP28, we conducted a consultation among our constituents, and these are the experiences, that has been expressed by our members. And since our livelihoods rely heavily on weather and climatic conditions, there is not much option for us but to adjust our farming practices or our farming systems and to work more closely with support and resource institutions, just like the research centers here, so that we can protect and enhance our livelihoods within the changing environment and continuously provide nutritious and healthy food for all. It is also important to mention here that many of us small scale farmers have been adapting, no, even before climate change are being felt. We have been adapting our practices that are becoming more relevant and are becoming more, more getting more attention today with changes in climate that we are experiencing. Some of the practices that we have been doing as small scale farmers are diversification and conservation of indigenous varieties. And I think some, no, of the elements of these were already mentioned in the earlier statement. We also recognize, while we have our own innovation at the farm level, we also recognize that several of the enhanced farming systems among our membership have been developed, co-developed, and introduced by research institutions. So we recognize the support of national agriculture research institution, institutional, international research centers. Support to small scale farmers. In the Philippines, for example, and in other Southeast Asian countries, we grow rice, no? After we grow rice beans, which is very known to be drought tolerant and something that can give nitrogen to the soil. We grow rice bean after rice. And also we have been planting improved varieties of sweet potatoes and short season pigeon peas. So these are the enhancements, no, that has been introduced so that small scale farmers can actually adjust to the changing climate. Alpha Agenda 2 is centered on promoting sustainable agriculture and agroecology within our network with diversification as a key approach. Our members in Southeast Asia, Central Asia, specifically Kyrgyzstan, are practicing agroforestry to maximize vertical spaces. And this is favorable when it comes to food security and income and sustainability, which we have heard some of you have mentioned. Intercropping of vegetables are also being practiced widely among our membership in Southeast Asia. However, we also acknowledge that there are some challenges faced when it comes to promoting diversification. For example, in coconut, no, growing areas, there are some challenges faced when it comes to practicing diversification, and even among farmers who hold less than 1 hectare of land. Personally, I also belong to the Ifugao tribe in the northern part of the Philippines. And in the northern part of Luzon, we grow a lot of indigenous local vegetables like taro yams, alugbati or Malabar nightshade, saluyot or jute, malunggay or moringa oleifera, among others. And these are vegetables that we know are nutritious, are culturally important to us, and are hardy, demanding no less inputs, and these are the crops where I've never seen really problems on pests as well, and they can tolerate, even the dry spells. So with this today's session on crop diversity, it is very important for us, no, small scale farmers in Asia. And more importantly, I hope we can forge co-designed initiatives and identify concrete collaboration around resilience and crop diversity in a true partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please remember to keep in mind what is being presented, because at the end, we're going to have another round of non phone participation, um, local type of Menti. And, and so, well, we've heard some of your perceptions. We've heard what the crop trust is doing. We've heard a perception from the Farmers Association, and now we're going to have a series of very brief technical presentations from experts sharing the experience of what they're doing around engaging with um, crop diversity. So our first speaker for today, who will have a challenging time um, hitting in 3 minutes all of the work they do, is Sharada Krishnan, and she's Director of Programs of the Global Crop Diversity Trust. In this role, she supervises a team of scientists and project managers overseeing the implementation of strategic projects and programs designed to support the organizational mandate of securing the world's crop diversity. Um, Sharada Krishna, can I invite you? Yes, please. Do you want to? Yes. To,
Thank you. I think the keynote, Stefan talked about us to dream of a world where we have climate resilient crops. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples in my 3 minutes about two examples about crops that have been developed that are climate resilient. And this was through a crop wild relatives project that we did for 10 years. And this one, the first crop that I'm talking about is a variety of durum wheat called Jabal, which was released in Morocco in July of 2022 with our partners Icarda in Morocco. And this one was a wheat variety was used and crossed with a crop wild relative of wheat from Syria to develop climate resilience, very high drought tolerance. And this was used. The farmers were also involved in the selection of this variety because we really need to make sure that farmers are involved in these variety selections. And during a drought time, 2 years of drought when other wheat varieties failed, this was the only one that survived. And another variety that was recently released last year was Sip Metal, which was released in Peru with the International Potato Center in Peru. And this is also developed in close collaboration with farmers and within the Andean communities. And this particular variety is resistant to the late blight of potato, a devastating disease that caused the Irish potato famine in the 1800s. And it also is a very good potato with good taste qualities. So these are two examples of deploying crop diversity to develop varieties that are resilient to climate change. So there is hope. We do, gene banks do conserve this diversity, and it is making sure that we use them to develop resilience. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's amazing thing keeping time. Please remember once again what are the new things you're picking up from the role that the technical teams are presenting. At the end, there'll be a copy for the winner of who can highlight more things that we can do with crop diversity. And this time, I would like to invite our second presenter, Dr. Carlo Fada of Biodiversity International. He's based in Kenya and he leads biodiversity research for food and agriculture. Dr. Fada?
Yeah. Thank you. And it's really a pleasure to be here. And Ari spoke about the need to co-develop and co-create results for making production more resilient and more working better for the smallholder farmers. This is one of example, global manifesto, which has been on forgotten crops, which has been developed together with the global Forum for Agricultural Research together with regional bodies like FARA and APARI. And it's really showed that the importance of these crops and how they can be put to work for the smallholder farmers. It was through a consultative process. And as Stefan said and reiterated from the previous speaker, it's really these crops are there. They are the solution the farmers are using. There is a lot of local knowledge. If we wait for science to do the work, it will be too late. So we need to really work with the farmers because they know a lot around those crops. So co-creation, co-development, putting those crops to work for resilience as well as for mitigation. The forgotten crops are obviously critical part to multifunctional, diversified, and sustainable agri-food system. And the manifesto has already an action plan. So it's a call for action. It's not something theoretical. And we need to work with the custodian farmers of this diversity. And that the diversity is not enough. We need to have a holistic and system approach. We need to work on nature positive solution with where agrobiodiversity obviously is an entry point. We need to strengthen, we need to conserve, restore, and manage agrobiodiversity landscape. Arish mentioned about agroforestry. This is super critical to make systems sustainable. Recycling is very important, is a very important source of land degradation and pollution. And seed systems are, and once we have all this diversity, how do we make it available to the farmers? So seed system as an integral part to make diversity accessible to farmers through, for example, community seed banks and other farmers-led approaches. Thank you.
Impressive what happens with some motivation. I guess we can use that motivation also for crop diversity usage, right? All right, thank you, Dr. Fada. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Hugo Campos. He is the Deputy Director General of Research for the International Potato Center. Well, I have to say he's also very passionate about root and tuber crops. So welcome, Dr. Campos.
Thank you, Vivian.
So how can I run it? Let me see. Okay, now it's okay. Good morning. Come on. Good morning. That's so much better. So we don't have a lot of time today. So, but just to provide more insight about RTV crops, we have some freebie books. So let me book right after our panel come to me, especially people from coming from developing countries, and we'll be just more happy to share those with you. So today we're talking about crop diversity. Allow me just to show you real examples about crop diversity. Okay, move from the gene banks into plant breeding. Um, so this is Jam, okay? And trust me, this guy is not a dwarf. He's very tall. Okay, so this is how a jam harvest looks in West Africa. Then we have wonderful bananas, very tasty bananas from Nigeria. Then this lady very proudly with us our cassava from Nigeria as well, and some children right there just enjoying sweet potato from Mozambique. So root and tuber crops, they can really make a major role to increase climate resilience and food security in Africa and elsewhere. But the most important thing is that essentially everything that we do is based upon using crop diversity. Without having the crop diversity, without having that raw material, we won't be able just to do what we do with RTV crops. And just speaking very quickly about RTV crops, and this is an analysis carried out by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and IFPRI. Over the next 30 years, there is one group of crops among all crops that they will see the most increase in demand, domestic demand, and also economic value added in Africa. These are TV crops, namely banana, potato, cassava, sweet potato, and yam. And essentially, the most effective way to achieve this is including diversity. I will share with you only a couple of examples. Here, for instance, this is work carried out by colleagues at SIP in Uganda, developing hybrids. We believe that developing hybrids in this is the way forward because, among many other reasons, hybrids they provide more climate resilience. This wonderful example is about jam, where colleagues in Cote d'Ivoire and in Nigeria, they're really making a step change by changing the way that jam is produced. So if you go to West Africa today, you will see that jam is producing in this way. Well, using some dwarf alleles coming from the gene bank, we're really changing the architecture of the crop so that it becomes available to more and more people. Then potato. So some of our previous speakers, they were talking about a heat tolerance. Well, our colleagues in potato, they're making some very significant increases in terms of the heat tolerance in potato varieties for Africa, again, using genes coming from the gene bank. But I'd like to stress a critical distinction. In addition to use crop diversity in a much more effective way, this is about creating south-to-south collaborations, okay? Because in many cases, where the genes are in the south, okay? So we're really putting them into creating value in the south as well. So moving forward, why we believe that RTV cross, again, building on genetic diversity, we can really make even a bigger impact in South Africa as well. Let's start with biofortification. The CGIAR's most successful um, story about biofortified crops so far is the OSP developed at SIP. So it's namely vitamin A, sweet potato varieties. Well, those alleles, they come from Peru and Brazil, and they have been spread all over Africa. A similar situation is happening with cassava, and in probably 1 year from now, with the potato varieties enriched in using genes coming from Peru. Also, um, those crops, because of the climate resilience, they are being used in more and more humanitarian and relief operations. We cannot forget about people going into hardship. For instance, in Kenya, in Madagascar, in Ethiopia, just to provide a couple of examples. And in addition, again, this discussion is about using genes, the genetic diversity to increase climate resilience and food security, right? So there is a lot of field data and also some modeling making the case for Arctic crops, just to really being able, just to better withstand climate change that other crops because of their nature, because they don't rely on climatic conditions at pollination, for instance, just to produce roots. And finally, um, those crops they are really available during the hunger months in Africa, where essentially you have nothing else in Africa. So with that, I'm running on time. I'm sorry here. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. I think you have motivated us a lot more with those books. So remember to pick up your books. We're going to be sharing them on participation. So make sure that you make your comment at the end and you're taking notes. I'm taking notes of all the presenters. You should be doing the same, right? How can we use crop diversity? And I'm going to present our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Sarah Hearn from CIMMYT. Dr. Hearn is the director of the Genetic Resource Program at CIMMYT, and she will be sharing with us some of her experiences. Welcome, Sarah.
Okay, everybody, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to go through crop genetics in 3 minutes. So be prepared. So I'm going to talk to you about a multi-stakeholder, multi-crop project and initiative that we've been running with support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and FAR. So when we think of crop genetic diversity, I usually think about what we see at the end of the image here, a beautiful gene bank, lots of fantastic flasks on the shelves. Now, when we think about that, and you think about this from a breeding perspective, it's often very difficult for breeders to access the genetic diversity that's relevant to them. When we look in the middle, we see what has happened with genetic diversity as we've moved from crop wild relatives through to the many tens and hundreds of thousands of land races that are stored in gene banks today, then through to modern breeding varieties. And through this process, we've generated what is often called a breeding bottleneck. The breeding has done a superb job of selecting things that farmers prefer in the fields, but through that process, some things have been left behind on those gene bank shelves. So when we look at conditions like this of drought, there is a need to go back to those genetic resources. We've heard some great examples of that today, to be able to identify new genetic diversity or new genetic diversity from the breeding perspective that we want to bring forward into modern and improved varieties. But when we also look at the gene bank, if I'm coming into a gene bank as a breeder, for me to be able to select something that's relevant for my particular need, I'm looking for a particular heat tolerance, drought tolerance, pest resistance. I see something like that at the bottom of the slide. It's like going into a supermarket to select an ingredient, and there are lots and lots of packets on the shelves, but I have no clue which one to pick. There's no relevant information to help me make that selection. And so this is where we bring genetics to the fore and modern genomics. Across this initiative, what we've been doing is characterizing those collections using DNA fingerprinting. So just like taking DNA from your blood and characterizing it, we take DNA from these plants. Many of the collections that are housed within the gene banks have passport data, just like your passport, my passport. And in many cases, it gives us the actual site, the farmer's field from which these collections were obtained. Using that geolocation data, we can pull out long-term climate variables from these locations. So we know what kinds of conditions the crop has evolved in. Now, coming back to using that data, we can start to crunch things together in two ways. The first, as you see on the very left, we can start to identify particular genetic variants or alleles that have not made it through the breeding bottleneck, but that are strongly associated with these particular environmental features that we're interested in: high temperature, low rainfall. Additionally, we can start to use this information in different models. So just like climate modeling, we can conduct genetic modeling. And so thinking moving forwards and future climates, we can start to pull together an understanding of what would the genetic makeup of new varieties need to look like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So that enables us to get a little bit ahead of the curve and to start breeding now for things that are relevant tomorrow, for the future challenges that we're coming up against. And so with this, I hope I've tried to explain to you how we can move from gene banks to actually being banks of genes. So to try and open that black box a little bit to make live and vibrant those collections that are housed and conserved for humanity, and really to open them up to give genetic insurance for farmers. Thank you very much. Back to you, Vivi.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I've never heard a course of 3 minutes of genetics, so that was amazing. Thank you. I think we're going home with a lot of learning in terms of how much the teams can actually simplify language and present in 3 minutes. Maybe we need to give them 3 minutes all the time. Uh, so we've heard a few issues and elements that have been highlighted by our panel members about the use of crop diversity. And now we're going to invite a set of speakers. I think one of them is online. Can you confirm if Dr. Heck's connectivity is working? In the meantime, I will invite the rest of our speakers who will be responding to one critical question. And as I call your name, please come up to the stage. I will start. Okay, connectivity is working. I'll start with Dr. Simon Heck, Director General of the International Potato Center. Welcome, Simon. I will also invite, representing the government of the Netherlands, I'll invite Dr. Timo Gasbeck, Senior Policy Officer on Food Security from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'll invite Dr. Maria Inés Rivadeneira, joining us from the World Wildlife Federation, where she is the Policy Coordinator for Latin America and the Caribbean. Policy and Governance. Yes, please. She conducts research also known as FFAR. Welcome, Allison. Sorry, Dr. Rivadeneira. Our next speaker will be Alison Thompson of the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research. Welcome, Alison. Next speaker will be speaking on behalf of the farmers is Dr. Rajashri Joshi. She's the director of BAIF, Development Research Foundation, a reputed Indian NGO committed to the cause of sustainable rural development. Over the past 5 decades, successfully has introduced many innovative and relevant climate smart interventions across Indian states. Welcome, Dr. Joshi. Okay, so now I have a simple question for you. Let me start with Dr. Gasbeck. After listening to the technical opportunities, do you believe diversity is a stronger resource to leverage in the fight to address this challenge?
Thank you. First of all, it's humbling to sit among such giants and to be part of this. I think the crop diversity work that is happening is essential. If you read the IPCC six report, the chapter on food, it indicates that the climate change impacts on food production are bigger than we can handle with adaptation at the moment. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and it becomes more urgent every day. My wife is Sri Lankan. She'll be very happy that I sit next to a picture of chilies. because she's complaining all the time about the lack of spiciness of our Dutch chilies. So it's not just about food production, it's also about the quality of the food. For the Netherlands, this is a really important element. That's why we're a big supporter of CGIAR. Also, we have joined the VAX initiative at the COP on the underutilized crops to also pay attention to that more. I think what is really important is not just the research on the varieties, but also the socio-economic aspects of it. Because if a farmer can't make money with it, then at some point it will be a big problem. But also, my first engagement on crop varieties was talking to a farmer in Cambodia about which rice varieties he was growing. And he told me he grew a variety that was not tasty, so that his family would eat less and the stocks would last longer. And that kind of baffled me, but there's a logic in that. And unless we take those logics, and they're very different, into account, we risk missing the point. So it's good to hear all the examples of working with farmers. I think it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, highlighting the logics and perspectives. Thank you, Dr. Hook. Online, I'd like to also invite you to respond to the same question. After listening to the technical opportunities that were presented by our previous speakers, do you believe diversity is a stronger resource to leverage the fight to address this challenge, and how?
Yeah, thank you very much, and apologies for not being able to be with you at COP. I had to leave a bit earlier than expected on Monday. Thanks for inviting me, and congratulations to all the participants. I think we again heard the rich experiences uh, around crop diversity from the farmers themselves, from the researchers, and from other stakeholders that are already practitioners of improving crop diversity. For me, the question is also how are we able to increase and then share the benefits of crop diversity beyond the communities and the experts already engaged in it? It's really a global asset that needs to resonate and does resonate with markets and with society at large. If you look at the kind of value that crop diversity provides, it's clear that farmers appreciate the additional income, they appreciate the health of their own families, a sense of ownership of their environment, and a sense of future perspective. I think we also heard just now that consumers are interested in crop diversity because it provides them a better food experience. I think these are the kind of values that we need to harness and that we need to capture to make a more comprehensive case for investing in crop diversity in the long run as part of global initiatives like VAX. And the question then is, what are the tools and what's the data, what's the evidence we need to make that bigger case that crop diversity should become a mainstream tool for climate adaptation in agriculture and in the food system more widely. The beauty of crop diversity, of course, it's the diversity. It's not only diversity of crops and of genetic material, it's also diversity of socioeconomic context. It's diversity of knowledge system around crops. To capture that and integrate it into a comprehensive business case, if you will, for support to crop diversity is then the challenge. And I think that's where some of our colleagues in the research centers working in a very equitable way with farming communities and with other stakeholders, including consumers, to construct that business case, I think will be an important next step to really utilize crop diversity, utilize the scientific tools that we have now available for breeding, that utilize also the new confidence and the expertise of farmers and their communities together and make that an integrated partnership. I think is something from our side, from the research side, we're very interested in, we're very committed to, and we look forward to working with the stakeholders in the room today and with others on. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Hick, for highlighting that need for a stronger interaction and collaboration with our partners and stakeholders in this process. So that leads us to Alison. So, Alison from the Foundation of for Food and Agricultural Research, I'll shift the question a bit for you on in terms of what do you need from the research community to enable you to build a better case for coordination and investment in diversity within your stakeholder community.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks so much for having us here as well. So, we are a funding organization based in the US, the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research. And how we operate is building public private partnerships. So, we're listening to researchers all the time, research community, but we're also working with the private sector across the whole value chain. We're also working with other governments. We're working with farmer organizations and kind of gathering information across the board. I think the good news is that we do hear from everyone and how important diversity is, bringing diversification of our cropping systems, breeding for resilience and uh, to handle future climates. And all of this is critically important across the board. We hear this from farmers, we hear it from stakeholders everywhere. One of the things we're hearing from scientists as well in the research community um, is to respond to the sense of urgency, is a need for tools to help us do this faster. So we have a new program called the Harvest for Health Challenge, Breakthrough Challenge, which is actually working to develop tools to identify from the vast gene banks out there what are some target crops that really have the potential. So how can we sort of narrow down which ones we explore and accelerate the research in that way? Another challenge we hear is actually a lot from our value chain partners, corporations, and so on, who really do understand and embrace the need for diversity and diverse crops more, but see a real challenge in the market, seeing almost a market failure, at least in some areas, to really capitalize on growing diverse crops. So how do we help support farmers to access markets so that they are able to take advantage of all the great work that is being done in the breeding? So those are some of the things we're hearing from our stakeholders. This is incredibly important work that you all are doing, and we're not having a challenge getting support there. And really looking forward to working with you more on what are the next research frontiers we should be supporting.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight into new tools, exploring accelerating processes. Um, a complementary perspective now. I'd like to invite Dr. Joshi. In your experience, what role do rural farmers play in this discussion?
Um, yeah, thank you very much. And I'm glad to be on this panel. And thank you, Dr. Carlo, also for facilitating this. It's very important theme, and especially for farming communities. Like I can tell from the experience or the insights based on the work that we are doing with almost 4 million small and marginal farmers in India. And I think it is very important. And I feel this crop diversity is very much a cross-cutting theme when we are talking about gender and climate action, when we are talking about crop, this food and nutrition security, and when we are talking about resilient farming. So there are multiple kind of issues and crises which can be addressed if we start focusing on agrobiodiversity. And from farmers' perspective, I think that is the way of living for them, and they have been having. There is a program called THAS, which is Tribal Heritage Agriculture Systems. So I feel that heritage agriculture system, agrobiodiversity, and the very nature of agriculture, in which culture aspect is there, and lot of these agrobiodiversity is linked to their culture, the kind of food habits that they have. I think Sir spoke about the particular trait that they are looking at. Even we have a team of scientists who are working on characterization and understanding different local claims for choosing particular land race or conserving particular land race. And the farmers have this immense kind of knowledge and also preference systems why they are choosing particular paddy or particular sorghum or particular maize. So I think it is very much necessary to understand their knowledge system prioritization and also scientifically validate those. So I think there is huge scope to work around many aspects, like somebody talk about commerce. So I think from conservation, cultivation, consumption, because there is a problem of malnutrition. So I think and commerce while doing collective action and capacity building.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi, highlighting one of the comments that we had at the beginning. Remember, somebody said indigenous knowledge, so that highlight really touches on that issue. Thank you so much. Um, Complementing that same approach, I'd like to invite Dr. Rivadeneira. Any discussion or comment on rural farmers and crop diversity, how it must include indigenous knowledge? What is the importance of working with indigenous people to contribute to crop diversity for climate change, adaptation, and mitigation?
Thank you so much for the invitation. I work in a conservation organization which is World Wildlife Fund, and our core is conservation of biodiversity. As you know, unsustainable production of food is responsible for almost 70% of the loss of biodiversity in the world and the 50% of freshwater loss. So, of course, talking about sustainable production is a very important topic in our work. But I would like to highlight something from my side because I am working in human rights research and in environmental governance. So I cannot talk in a different perspective. And something that we are doing in WWF that is really important is to include a human based approach in our work. So we are working in order to rescue the traditional ways of product food. And for example, we have Chacra Amazonia or canoeras with the Afro-descendant people, which are traditional ways to produce food. And the way that we are working is also to strengthen the organization at the communitarian level. And of course, seeing what is happening with the benefit sharing that my colleague already mentioned. So create opportunities, equal opportunities for all of the people that is involved in the production, but also in the value change. So we are analyzing what is happening in different moments of the production and consumption and trying to make a systemic change. And this is important because we are working in that perspective, not only diversify the crops, that is really important, and rescue the nutrition, the opportunity for nutrition for the people, but also diversifying the voices and the participation of the people. So we think that if we combine both the technical perspective that we need for food production and making that sustainable is important, but also what is happening in general with the community organizations and how the organizations could be better, smarter, and efficient. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a hand of applause. Thank you. So I will ask Dr. Joshi to remain and invite the other speakers to take a seat. Thank you for joining us. So now, as it should be, right? We've started off by talking about the crop trust, the bigger picture. Then we had the presentations from the different teams talking about their experience on the technical side. We had all the different stakeholders sharing what needs to be done, but the final word needs to be with the farmers. So, along with Joshi, I'd like to also invite
Yeah,
Irish,
thank you.
representing the farmers, to please
Yeah,
share with us some of your insights and
sure.
innovations.
So I think from farmers' perspective, this is a very important theme and action area, and it is not only climate change, but the agrobiodiversity is also intrinsically linked with their livelihoods. So I think that is very very important. They have lot of inherent knowledge associated with agrobiodiversity, and I think that needs to be respected, rewarded. And there are so many genome saviors that are there in many agroclimatic zone and across India. So I think there is a need to recognize their talent and also understand what knowledge they have. They have knowledge on various aspects of food system. starting from seeds to post harvest and seed viability and particular traits of particular seeds. So I think that needs to be recognized, rewarded, and there has to be an effort to identify the genome saviors. There may be many who are women, farm women. So I think that type of focus is required, and I'm glad that this panel has a mix of farmers organization, yeah, as well as very good funders, also very good practitioners and very good research organization like SIP. So I have a lot of hope from this panel discussion, and thank you for bringing us together.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to all the speakers. No, lots of insights have been heard. Lots of initiatives or a number of initiatives have also been and discussed. So, and we know that there are also a lot that has already been done, no, in terms of diversification, crop diversity, and resilience building. And with the speakers, from our perspective, I think I have seen that there is a recognition among you of the important knowledge and know-how of small-scale farmers and custodian farmers, especially women, when it comes to conserving and cultivating traditional and local crops. And also, on the other hand, we've heard a lot of initiatives, from the different research centers. So from us, I think within the hotter environment, that we have here, I think there was an emphasis of harnessing these two, uh, two knowledge system, if I may call it, one from the research and one from the practitioners. And I think for us to be able to really have the synergy or harness these, we need to enhance. I want to use this word, and transform also the processes and even the systems that we have set up in the past. And lastly, I want to say that we need to think about no access and control also of smallholder farmers to these resources, so that we can truly adopt and continue to provide the public good, the food, the nutritious food that we all need. And I want to highlight what has been said, that it's important to think about the returns, to the farmers, to the custodian farmers, or the outcomes. And I think it has been emphasized, the economic aspect. So we have to do this looking at the whole system, the whole food system, or the value chains that we are doing. So genuine participatory approaches are needed, and we have our institutions, farmers organizations, and cooperative across the 16 countries in Asia. We also work in almost all countries in Asia. We have network in Africa, Latin America, and we are ready to work with you again in true partnership manner.
Thank you. Let's give them a hand of applause. Thank you. And now we're going back to our in-person mentee poem. So remember at the beginning, we highlighted one or two words as why you thought crop diversity was important. Now, after listening to all these panelists, again, one or two words, we have some prizes there Ugo will be sharing, one or two words that you picked up from the discussion today about what would be critical to address. I'll start because I have the microphone on picking up from Irish's last point on bridging local and research knowledge. Anyone else? Yes. Can we hand the microphone? One or two words. One or two words.
Thank you so much. I'm Fatma Hassan from Sudan. I think linking local knowledge with the research, we have a very good experience in Sudan in improving the productivity of the stable food crops and giving chance for other areas to plant other diversified crops. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll get a prize. One or two words, no more. If you say more words, you don't get a prize.
Co-create.
Beautiful.
Intercultural co-creation of knowledge.
Wow.
Farmer representation.
Gene banks and ex situ facilities as a source of genes.
Too many words.
Lab to land and land to lab.
Land.
Nutrition.
South-South learning, education, all.
Access and control of seeds.
We must diversify.
Opportunity.
One or two.
Try again, seed system.
Work together.
Work together. Beautiful. Okay, one more? Last? No? All right. Okay, this has been an amazing and very engaged crowd. And now I'd like to invite a very distinguished speaker for our closing remarks. To invite Dr. Eliane Balijoro, the Director General of C4 ECRAF, to offer some closing remarks.
We've had such distinguished speakers. I almost feel like I shouldn't say anything at all. It's been really just very powerful to have such different perspectives and really ending on the farmer perspective and getting the indigenous knowledge input is so critical to this work because it's central to who we are serving at the end of the day. All of us in this room are here to serve the smallholder farmers and indigenous communities that hold that biodiversity that's so critical to the critical importance of this work. So it's really my pleasure to be giving these closing remarks. First of all, I just like to thank everybody who woke up early, lined up, walked through the lines, sweated through the heat to get here. And I know how intense these days are. And the fact that you planned your morning to get here early to be here says how much this work matters. And we just want to thank you for this. And in particular, I just want to thank you because prior to joining C4 Craft, I had the pleasure to be on the board of Crop Trust. And so it's just wonderful that all of you are here recognizing the critical work that Crop Trust does and the convening power that showed up this morning and how important that is. And so the power of genetic diversity is both an important topic and one that is really close to me. Um, Not least because we have an important task ahead of us to transform our food systems and stabilize climate. The importance of banks in achieving this goal cannot be underestimated. They conserve the world's diversity, and they share that diversity with scientists and farmers to make our food systems and our planet as resilient as possible. As we heard from the incredible speakers today, we depend upon a remarkable small number of plant species for food. Many of these stable crops have little genetic variability, and we need to conserve all of it. This puts them at risk for climate change or new pests and diseases. Without this biodiversity, we cannot adapt our commercial varieties to face challenges, and we cannot ensure that smallholder farmers, as they distribute these seeds to each other, that they hold and can preserve that biodiversity. Without this, we really need to understand that the future of food systems will not be possible. As one speaker showed us, by using crop wild relatives, there are already tasty, resilient crops thriving in farmers' fields developed using crop wild relatives. Jabal ad Sip Matilda. We heard about initiatives on biofortification of crops and the positive impact this can have on nutrition. And now several speakers highlighted it is critical to partner with farmers when developing new varieties or encouraging farmers to grow different varieties. But it's also interesting to remember that in one case, we had that case of growing something that didn't taste so well to have more food in the long term. So it talks about the tensions that are held. How can we take away that tension and ensure that there's enough nutritious, abundant food, but that's also tasty? Because at the end of the day, food is also the joy of our lives. So, these, as scientists, as researchers, as funders, as stakeholders in this space, how can we serve the really critical stakeholders in this space more effectively? So, at the heart of this work, we need to be human centric, understanding both the challenges and opportunities for resilience that Indigenous peoples, smallholders, and other stakeholders experience as they try to ensure sustainable, prosperous livelihoods. Without working together, we have no guarantee that our efforts will have the results we're hoping for. There's an incredible amount of work on the ground, solutions that are already having positive impact. And if we wish to adapt our agriculture to climate change and encourage diverse, healthy diets, it's critical that we share our knowledge and practices. We've already had a momentous part of this COP28 in terms of the recognition, the importance of the criticality of our food systems as we face climate. So it's important that we collectively continue this work to really show that agriculture can be a force in fighting climate change. I'd like to share some of the work we do at C4 Aircraft. Just over a month ago, the first cohort in first of its kind course to train African scientists in cutting edge technology graduated on our campus. We welcomed talented scientists from across the continent, and the goal was to train them in using technologies to quickly adapt agriculture to climate change. Every corner of our globe should have equal access to the scientific advancements that can improve lives and safeguard our planet. And it is critical that this investment in agriculture is an investment in our future, in the future of our planet. And in this, it's very critical. Orphan crops, neglected tropical crops that are so critical to climate resilience and to nutrition are not left behind. This commitment to addressing the pressing challenges of our time while partnering with brilliant minds globally to lead the way is so important. The work we've already heard about today is incredibly inspiring because it encapsulates transformative change underway around the world. And that is critical because it gives us hope. This is how we can ensure our children and our children's children will never be left with an earth barren of her diversity and life. Thank you for all the work you're doing to preserve the biodiversity critical to our food systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Dr. Valijero. That was beautiful. I remain, and I think we all do, with the food as the joy of our lives, highlighting diversity in crops, in plant species, but also diversity in people, right? We are widely diverse and we connect very well. So let's not forget about the social dimension of crop diversity. Thank you all, and thank you to the team online who joined us today, and a big clap for all of you. Please contact Hugo Campos on exit in case you are collecting a prize. Yes, come join us on stage for a picture, please.